I'm Anna Webb. Welcome to A Dog's Life. Hey, Mr. Binks, you know how it's very, very sad when our dear friends pass away. Well, that's why we're jumping on Zoom now to talk to Pet Bereavement Counsellor Dawn Murray about her new book and about how she became a pet bereavement counsellor. Dawn Murray, thanks so much for coming on A Dog's Life.
Hi, good afternoon, Anna. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for asking me.
No, gosh. Well, I think we follow each other on social media, and I've been aware of your work as a pet bereavement counsellor.
Yes, that's right. I've been doing that job now for about 20 years.
So you must have been one of the first pet bereavement counsellors. Would you have been, Dawn?
Yes, I believe I was, because back 20 years ago, there was actually very little known, spoken about on the internet about pet bereavement. There was only a few articles here and there. So it was really basically going into a sort of unknowns quantity, really, to see what it was that people who had pets and were grieving the loss of them, what it was they were actually looking for. I obviously had my own experience, but it was very important for me to understand what that loss meant to other people.
Yes, I mean, definitely. Gosh, I'm trying to put this into context, 20 years ago. I mean, the internet had only really just begun. So there wasn't an awful lot really of anything, I mean, Facebook hadn't started then. I mean, what a lovely era. And it's so good to, like you, to remember that time, when we didn't just ask Google everything, but that's my cynicism coming out there, Dawn, a bit. But no, I mean, this is it. But people have been coping, well, or maybe not. I mean, the tragic thing is your pet is most likely going to die before you. And, you take a pet on understanding quite clearly in your mind that that all being well, your dog will reach 15. That would be very, very good. And sometimes though, life throws curveballs and life doesn't go according to plan. And many people call it that's life. What do you think about that?
No, that's true, and it's funny because it's one of these things. When we get a pet, the majority of people really appreciate that they will outlive their pets, and that one day they will have to be faced with that absolutely devastating day where they will have to say goodbye. However, while we have our pets in our life, it doesn't tend to be something we think about. We tend to push it to the back of our minds. We forget all about it, which is good, of course. And it creeps up on people. The years pass by so quickly. And of course, not all pets live to old age, unfortunately. A lot of them do die younger through illnesses or accident. And the people who care and love for their pets, who are part of their family and a big part of their family, are then left in a totally unfamiliar place where they just don't know how to cope, because we're not taught to cope with death. We're not taught to cope with loss. And people just all of a sudden find themselves in this very unfamiliar territory, and they just don't know where to turn to. They don't know how to cope. They don't know how to act. They don't know if they're grieving properly. Not that there is such a thing, because we all grieve differently.
Yes, and that's something you've got a book out, which I am getting through. It's quite an emotional read, really, if you have been what I'm finding so interesting in your book, and I really want to talk about exactly what you said there, that everybody is an individual and everybody experiences individual grief. And I think it's particularly important with pets because my dad died in 2001, and that was my first real encounter of death. So I was only 36 then, but that was obviously with your dad. So people kind of were able, other people had gone through that, everyone loses their father. So I felt I had much more of a support network around me, really, than when it came to the loss that totally devastated me. I mean, seriously, Dawn, I should have been a client of yours. I wish I had, because it could have saved me a lot of wrong decisions, a lot of going off the rails, a lot of people losing faith in me, I think, because this was the strong bull terrier type Anna. She's crumbled, she's gone, she's lost the plot. So because Molly was a dog, and I think a lot of people try and help you with a dog, lots of my friends had lost dogs, but there is this utter anger inside you. And Molly's death actually wasn't your straightforward situation. So she was injured on purpose in this, village. So I was very isolated. So all these things you're saying, if you're on your own, it's a terrible thing, the loss of your pet. It will, and rightly so. And yeah, and I think it's brilliant that this book is kind of outlining different types of grief, because there's lots of different sorts.
There is, and I think even somebody like myself who has sadly I've encountered loss many times over the years, of both human and especially all my pets. We always underestimate just how devastated we are going to be, even when, no matter how well prepared we are, we always underestimate it. And there are different types of grief. For people who perhaps have been told that their pets have, if they've been diagnosed with some sort of illness, or the vet has suggested or started talking about euthanasia, straight away we start going into this sort of anticipatory grief, where we're already, it's also known as the long goodbye, where we're already grieving for our future. So we're still living with our pets and we're still enjoying them, but we know we're going to lose them, and we go through whole host of emotions. Now, that doesn't mean to say because we start experiencing all these emotions prior to our pets dying that we're not going to have a sort of whole new wave after they have died. But yes, there's sort of a natural grieving, there's complex grieving, prolonged grieving, cumulative grieving, traumatic grieving. And when I'm speaking to some of my clients, as soon as they start telling me their story, straight away I am aware of what basically more or less the type of grieving that they're experiencing, and that enables me to help them best and find a way forward to help them sort of navigate through all these the emotions, and how they are physically affected as well, because we become physically affected by loss. So it just gives us a better understanding of what we are actually facing when we're grieving, and it can be actually quite complex at times.
Yes, and it links into other mental health issues, doesn't it, really, as well, Dawn, like depression, anorexia even. With my dad, I remember I lost a stone of weight in a week. And the same happened with Molly. I just didn't eat. So, and I know in the book you mentioned that. Well, actually, you also mentioned eating more.
That would be me. That would be me.
No, but interesting you're saying this, because I mean, this podcast is being recorded at the most ironic moment in time, in that my cat, who's nearly 13, Gremlin, he's just had a full body ultrasound. You remember, I come from the holistic side of the fence. So, when the vet's going, well, they're looking for something, vets, obviously, so he's perfect. I mean, they're like, oh my God, so his kidneys are so good. I go, right. And his bladder's absolutely brilliant. I go, right. And I'm just thinking, oh, where's the butt? But his small intestine has thickening. It could be something like irritable bowel syndrome, Anna. I go, yeah, but all inflammation can or can't be cancer, you know. So that's where he was going on it and everything. So this has just happened as of last Friday, and we're actually recording this on the Tuesday. So it's all like mad here, absolutely mad. So I've been, the bank holiday weekend's been like an emotional roller coaster, because the other thing is he's now got diabetes, which is a symptom of something else, because diabetes, you know, is generally in animals and people when they're, you know, fat and don't really eat the right diet, you know, that generally causes, because in cats diabetes it mimics type 2 diabetes in humans, so arguably fixable. But then Gremlin's been eating a raw food diet all his life and has never been fat, so it's not that. So we're just working things out. Yeah, so I am doing the prolonged goodbye.
It's a lot to process. It really is. It's an awful lot to process. And, you know, certainly, you know, with the advances in veterinary care and especially, you know, when people start introducing the holistic side as well, there is so much that we can do to help our pets. But obviously, ultimately, yes, we want every single moment, second of their lives to count. We want it to be so special for them. And that's not always easy when we know something they don't.
But you see, I think they know without question. I think they know, you know, because they know that their own body chemistry is changing. And they also know, I mean, with me, I've got 2 other animals in the home. I've got Prudence, who's just, oh dear, a living miracle, I think we should say. And Mr. Binks, who's my little quirky toy terrier, who is a little miracle in himself. And they all know, because the dogs can smell it. I'm not entirely sure on that. But then, oh gosh, he came out, we got back on Fridays to make you laugh at a bit of, you know, because this is obviously an announcement I'm doing here as well. So he'd had this ultrasound all day. Anyway, he'd gone hyperglycemic, and he wouldn't eat, and he was feral. He had gone feral. And oh gosh, he fell into the neighbour's pond. I mean, I was freaking out. I was thinking, what have they done? And then the vet said, oh, Anna, I don't think he liked being poked and prodded. I'm thinking, no, God, he clearly didn't. And then, so he ends up having a punch up with a fox. Anyway, long short of it is, I went to bed 1 a.m. He still hadn't come in. I'd given him his insulin, so, you know, whatever. That's what I've got to do at the moment. And you know, I was thinking I'm going to write to Adam, the vet, in the morning and say, sadly, your body, you know, he's dead. So, you know, he had an altercation with the fox. And anyway, I fell asleep like this. And then I woke up and on Saturday morning, and there's Gremlin lying on my chest staring at me, and I thought, crikey, what is going on? And it's just been such high stress and high adrenaline, and that's also what I've got to keep a check on big time. Although Gremlin's almost unflappable, but whatever, yeah, he came, it was almost, I thought, gosh, he's gone and committed suicide, because he knows we were having a conversation, so he's just, you know, walked into a huge fox.
Yeah. Although I should clarify that. Well, I think they know an awful lot more than we ever give them credit for. I think our animals are exceptionally clever. And I think they do know. So I don't know whether we are trying to protect them or they're trying to protect us, but certainly they do carry on much in a manner that, you know, they're very much living in the moment and enjoying all the simple things in life, you know. It's our anxiety levels that tend to go very, very high in that sort of anticipatory period where we're constantly just living in limbo, yes, like that. And we're thinking, oh, where are they? What are they doing? Are they coming home tonight? Or, you know, it is quite a worrying time for us.
Yes. And looking at the book, though, remind me, what is it called?
It's an introduction to Pet Bereavement Counselling.
So is this book for people who want to become a pet bereavement counsellor, or is it for someone like me?
Well,
I'm loving it, by the way. It's very psychological, which I love, because, you know, I've studied psychology. You know, I love it. I think it's very interesting, to be honest with you. It's important, I think, for everyone to read this. I mean, a friend of mine, when they got their puppy, a friend of hers gave her a book It was all about the, how to cope with the death of your dog, because, on the one hand, you're bringing in a puppy, and you have to accept that one day that grown-up dog won't be with you. And that was her welcoming gift for her puppy, a book about how to cope with bereavement. I know, an interesting gift from someone. Would you think?
Yes. I just feel initially when the idea of the book came about because I do quite a lot of teaching about pet bereavement. And over the years, people have said to me, veterinary staff, psychologists, counsellors have said to me, is there a book that tells us how to be a pet bereavement counsellor? And I've always said, well, no, there's not, but there's plenty of pet loss books out there. So I thought, I've been asked repeatedly, and especially over the past 2 years, a lot of the students have said to me, Dawn, why don't you write the book then?
Yeah.
And I'm not a writer, Anna. I'm not a writer. There's certain things I maybe do well, which is listening, but some of the other things I don't do particularly well, like writing. But I thought, right, okay, if I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it. So I thought I'll write this book for people who want to become pet bereavement counsellors, or at least have a knowledge in how to support others through the loss of a pet, and how just to show the sort of differences between the loss of a human and comparison to the loss of a pet, but also the similarities in how we cope, and how our grief is perceived by other people. So I do put it, I was aware that there will be people who lose a companion animal, or who perhaps they have elderly companions that they may say, oh, I'll have a wee look at this book. And there may be the odd sort of paragraph here and there that makes for uncomfortable reading, and they might not particularly want to know that information at this particular stage. The majority of it, yes, it is very much anybody could pick up the book and look at it and read it, and maybe, sort of follow somebody else's journey, because we've got a lot of stories in there from other people who have already been down that journey. So anybody can read it, but I do have a sort of, if you like, a short disclaimer at the beginning, that there may be parts of the book, because obviously in order to prepare somebody who wants to support others through pet bereavement, they have to realise that some of the stories that we are told can be very uncomfortable, because we are animal lovers. I've got my own dogs. My own cat only passed away last October, who was my office companion for many years. So we are animal lovers, and we have to be very careful that we are not taking too much of the sort of emotions of other people on board, and they start affecting us, because then obviously we won't be able to go on and continue to help other people.
No, absolutely. I think, that's so true, with all carers, of the NHS and everyone. It's a very, very draining emotionally. But at the beginning, you have a phrase, and it was brilliant, actually. And this is when I thought, gosh, I wish I'd known Dawn in 2015. Is you basically say, I think, help pet guardians, traverse this phase, this loss, with dignity. And the dignity bit, I didn't do it, Dawn.
Well, it's funny, Anna, because when a lot of people are recounting their stories and their perception of what they did, and quite often I'm listening to a lot of the stories of my clients, and I'm thinking, wow, do you know what? There's so much good of what they did do. And quite often in our grief and our bereavement, and I do it myself, I must admit, I think everything that's in the book I have experienced personally. We do tend to be quite hard on ourselves. We don't tend to give ourselves much of a break, and we want to, sometimes we self-blame, we look at things and think, oh, I wish I'd done something differently, when in actual fact we do the best we can at the time.
Yeah, no, it's true. But why is guilt synonymous then with grief?
Ah, right. And of course, guilt plays such a huge, huge part in pet bereavement.
I mean, massive. I'm already guilting out about Gremlin, that maybe I was giving him some a couple of sachets of processed food in the first 3 months of this year, due to being busy and all the rest of it, rather than preparing his raw meal as I normally do. He ate raw every single day, but he was getting very picky with his eating. So it would be like, nyeh, nyeh. So, stick a stinky sachet, not mentioning any brands, he'll be, oh yeah, junk food, amazing, cheers, mum.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like, great, and la la, and it was very like that, so I don't think he ate enough of that for this to be, but you never know. I mean, this is the thing. I know a couple of people, whatever, gave their dog just one thing of something and all sorts of bad things happen. So you never know, but I mean, I can't think like that, can I?
No, and it's very easy now, and guilt is fine in grieving. It's perfectly normal for us to sort of dip in and out of a wee bit of guilt. And that can be anything from somebody remembering when they gave their pet into trouble for something. Now that was in the pet's best interest. However, we are then left carrying the guilt right through to somebody who let their dog off the lead, and sadly the dog ran off and perhaps was tragically killed on the road or the railway line. It is our imagined or perceived thoughts, if you like, and quite often, it's slightly distorted that we have done something wrong, because, like you say, with the example of the food, yeah, junk food, and yet we're the ones that are carrying that junk, that guilt, whereas our companion animals may think, oh, this is quite good, but we do tend to, because guilt plays such a huge part in pet bereavement. It is something that we tend to focus on a lot, and it is very important, especially from somebody like myself, a pet bereavement counsellor, that we look to ways where we sort of reframe these thoughts, because there's always usually two sides to everything. So when somebody is sort of having these sort of maladaptive thoughts, what I do is I just try and reframe them. So for example, if somebody is thinking that they didn't do enough, we need to look at actually what they did do. If somebody is focusing on the fact that they had to make the decision to euthanize the pet, what I do then is we talk about the fact that they were the ones who in fact actually have saved their pet from a lot of suffering, which is a very selfless decision, made from love. And just being able to turn somebody's thoughts around is quite often enough to keep that anger, I beg your pardon, the guilt contained before it starts developing, and it can lead into anger, that sort of self-blame, and that can be a very, very downward spiral for somebody to go on.
No, I know, I've been there.
Yeah.
But a friend of mine, oh gosh, was absolutely heartbroken because he innocently gave his dog, a flea parasite control tablet. And, that same day, Charlie went down, and 3 days later he passed. And I remember my friend saying to me, Anna, I killed my dog. And I had to say, no, you didn't kill your dog. Look, and so on. It was really difficult. Yeah. Did I kill my dog with that flea treatment, Anna? Did I? And it is a brand of flea treatment that, I've been reliably told it's mostly sold in America. Don't use that one, really. So I'm making sure I don't mention any brands or say anything I shouldn't say. And well, everyone knows who listens that, I don't give my dogs flea and worm treatments. You test before you treat. And I think, maybe that this is a little reminder of people to do that, because my story is a true one. And still, though, 2 years later, my friend will remind me, but he's stronger about it now, but that will resonate with him for the rest of his life. And that's a big discussion there, involving vets and over medication and so on and so forth, that can cause, illnesses in certain incidences. Dawn, it's a very complicated situation, isn't it, with death?
It is, and there's everybody has a different experience. Everybody has a different story. And while, like I said before, there are similarities, there are parallels. Everybody's journey is very unique, and it is such. It can be, from the majority of people, such a difficult time. And because, of course, it's not everybody that understands pet bereavement, and it comes under the banner of disenfranchised grief, people do find that they are hesitant in who they can turn to get that additional help and support. And quite often, people aren't necessarily looking to be counselled per se, whereby they're looking for something very structured over a 6-week period, an hour every week, and they've got homework to take away with them. They are just looking for somebody who really understands what it's like to suffer the loss of a pet. And that more often than not is all people are looking for, is somebody to talk through how they're feeling, their guilt, their anger, even if they're bargaining, and looking for ways to find some acceptance for the loss of their pet, and the best way to move forwards with their grief.
It's funny, isn't it? So I grew up in a home with my dad, who was born in 1920, actually. And so, when our last Springer died, Tina, Dad said, right, Anna, come on, we're going up now to the National Canine Defence League to pick up this Cocker Spaniel. Just literally, that was the way to do it, the hair of the dog cure.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I see this happening, a lot. And I think it is often a very good thing to do. What do you think, Dawn?
Well, everybody's different. Everybody's entirely different. For many years, I worked as a pet undertaker, and I went to a home one day and I collected a much loved dog. I mean, the dog was absolutely loved and adored. I went to the crematorium, and when I went back later to see the family with their beloved dog's ashes, there was another dog sitting on the couch. And I went, "Oh, who's this?" Didn't know you had another dog. And they said, "No, we just got him. We just got him this afternoon." And I was like, "All right, okay, fair enough." And then, of course, the other side of the coin is that people will say to me, "Oh, Dawn, I'll never ever get another dog again. I'll never get another dog." And I keep thinking, that's such a shame, because there's so many dogs out there are looking for good homes, but they can still be. It depends on how long people want to how long it's taking them to process their loss, and when they feel comfortable to introduce another companion, because it's a whole new relationship, and they have to be ready to take on a new relationship where it is, they're going to give that dog or cat or whatever bird their 100% devotion, without trying to make comparisons. Although I've had a few slips of the tongue with, I've got 2 young dogs now, and I have occasionally gone through the entire list of dogs I've had previously before I get to the right name. Just sort of just not focusing really, rather than in comparison.
But a lot of people, I know several friends, and I did that as well. But the thing is, you do have to accept you're not bringing the old dog back. Although there will always be breed similarities, with a bulldog, for example, or a bull terrier, because they're so kind of idiosyncratic, shall we say, that they've got similar traits. But, that idea of just bringing them back. So that's what I wanted to do with Prudence, and bring Molly back, that she would do that. So as our bond, she would come back and be reborn as the bull terrier puppy I chose, Well, it didn't quite work out like that. And that's something I think, but then you see, it's all about creating a new chapter, because dogs do. That's something my dad told me. Dogs define chapters in your life, and he is so right. And he'd had that obviously through his life, and a new chapter, chapter closes and a new chapter begins. And that, I think, is always very important, because every dog in your life teaches you so much, which sounds a bit saccharine or overused, but it is true. And because it is a different dog, and they're going to have different behavioral issues, they're going to have different triggers, they're going to have different likes and dislikes and all the rest of it. And it's a new journey. I mean, and that's the reason for the hair of the dog cure, I think.
It is. I mean, people have said to me, my goodness, Dawn, how long did you wait between, losing one dog and sort of introducing another dog into the home? And I said, oh, well, it varied. Sometimes it was a week and other times it was 3-4 months, it was just the circumstance at the time. It was me looking for the right dog. And all like you say, Anna, all these relationships teach us something. They really do. Every single one of my dogs has been different, and I've been so grateful and privileged to have had them in my life, and I think it's important for people to remember that, when they are sort of starting to develop a new relationship with a new dog or a new cat or whatever, is that they straight away they say, oh, but I would feel guilty because, what if my last dog or cat feels that I'm betraying their memory? When in actual fact, what we will have to work on is saying, well, no, actually, we're going to bring their memory. They're not going to be forgotten. We're always going to remember them. However, this is a new relationship, even with my youngest, one of my youngest dogs at the moment. I've got a couple of whippets, and my youngest Georgia, I might say, oh, your Uncle Presley wouldn't have done that, or your Uncle Presley would do that. It's just these fun ways of keeping the memory of a dog alive that I've had before that I loved very much, but this is a whole new relationship that I have now.
Yes.
And we love them all so much.
Yes. And having a dog, you've got to walk it, you're meeting people, you're getting, all the benefits dogs bring to us, that if you don't have that at all in your life, gosh, I think it would be a very sad life to live indeed myself.
It is. And even with, any companion animal, because people still are looking to go out to go to the pet shop to get their food, or, and they're interacting with people, they can be talking about their animals, they're speaking to the people at the pet shop, they're getting out. So there's so many benefits from having any type of companion animal in your life. They're just marvelous.
I know they really are, but just so we're running out of time. But what really stood out in the book actually was that dogs are obviously, I understand that, the most grieved pet apparently. Cats are second, which, bearing in mind there are generally more cats always in this country than dogs, might be different now post all this pandemic puppy boom. And then goldfish come last. Well, guess what? I have grieved so much over my goldfish over the years. Dawn, I'm not very good with death, I don't think. The worst one was Gadget, my amazing Blackmore goldfish that I'd had for 4 years. I mean, anyway, Dawn, we could talk for ages, but cats surely are just as important as dogs.
Oh, they are, absolutely. And yes, it's something that I sort of refer to as a hierarchy of loss within, and this is within, people who have animals and love animals. They tend to sort of somehow put them into this level of importance of whether we should be grieving or not. Because it was really funny, and I'll tell you a very quick story. When my Staffordshire Bull Terrier died, just 4 years ago now, I was inundated with cards, flowers, messages, presents, you name it. And when my cat Hilda died last October, all I got in was a card from the vet to say, condolences for your loss of Hilda. And I would say to people, oh, Hilda died, and they would say, oh, did she? And that was just basically it. And yet when Andy died, there was almost like the ripples of grief that spread out among so many people, even friends and neighbours.
Yes.
We're sort of coming to the door and say, I'm so sorry for your loss. Whereas with Hilda, and to be on the receiving end of that, considering the type of work that I do, even I found it a ouch.
Oh, I'm sorry about Hilda. I mean, cats, Gremlin's my first ever cat, actually. So he's extraordinary. And I'm told that he's not like a normal cat because he was raised by Molly as a stray kitten.
Yeah.
And he just moved in. He chose us. Mad. Molly hated cats. It was the most extraordinary thing. So no, cats are super creatures, superpowers. So just remind us of the title of the book, but all that, because you can buy it on Amazon, can't you, the book?
Yes, it's available on Amazon, hardback, paperback, or on Kindle, and it's called An Introduction to Pet Bereavement Counselling.
Brilliant. And the links are going to be in the show notes. Thank you, Dawn.
Oh, thank you, Anne. It was lovely to chat to you.
That's our show, Mr. Binks. What did you think? Yes, I know it is really quite sad, but it is something that we all have to face. And you're right, it is time for Woof of the Week. Always remember that time with our pets is too short, so be sure to make the most of every day. Well, I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, go on, rate and review the show wherever you tune into your podcasts. It really makes a big difference. Thanks again, of course, to Dawn Murray for joining us today. And all the links to Dawn and to her book are in the show notes. Thanks, of course, to Mike Hansen, my producer, for all the music and production as ever. Find out more about him at Pod People UK. And for me, I'm at Anna Webb Dogs. What's that, Mr. Binks? Yes, you're right. We will be back in your feed next Sunday. If you subscribe now, which is totally free, you'll never miss another show. Go on, do it today. Bye for now.